Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is actually on a model of firearm that I have reviewed before, but not in this caliber. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact, but chambered in 9mm. Now I have reviewed this exact firearm but in .40 caliber before, and I did have some issues with it because I thought it was a little bit on the snappy side, and because it was a compact firearm I thought it was a little bit anemic when it came to the number of rounds that you have. And I have also reviewed the full-size one in .45, but everyone tells me 9mm is the way to go with these really cool rotating barrel Berettas. Now, some people in those other videos have also told me how I got it completely wrong, and this is the greatest carry gun of all time because Ernst Langdon of Langdon Tactical says they are. Now, of course, he has a vested interest because he, of course, tricks these out and he works closely with Beretta. But I'm not saying he's wrong, but now that I have one in 9mm, I'm really excited to see if that's the case. So before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this pistol, and of course get it to the range, I always want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really cool pistol. His name is Richard, and he has lent a bunch of guns in the past to the channel for me to review, so thank you once again, Richard. I always want to thank my Patreon supporters because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. I couldn't do it without them, and if you guys want to join my Patreon, you can do it for as little as $1 a month and get all these videos early, and there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor because he provides all the ammunition for these range reports, thus making them financially feasible. His name is Mark, and he owns the best grip company in the world, and that company is Brownworks. And I know if you're watching this video today and you're new to the Texas Gun Vault, you probably love Berettas. And besides having a Px4 Storm, you might own a Beretta 92. And of course, those guns can take wood panel grips. You might even own a 1911, a CZ75, or a Browning High Power. And you've thought to yourself, I would love to have a set of customized, one-of-a-kind wood grips. Well, I have the perfect company for you. And that company, once again, is Brownworks. Mark over there, he's an artist, he's a craftsman. He makes one-off custom grips to order out of exotic woods. He can make laminate woods. He can apply snake skin and alligator skin, as well as finish them in a wide variety of colors and even put on custom logos and engravings. Anything you can imagine, Mark can create. And so I'm going to ask you guys to go check out his website. There's going to be a link in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. Please go over there, see what he has to offer, tell him what you're looking for, and when you do, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so let's talk about what this gun is. Once again, we're going to be taking a look at the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact, chambered in 9mm. Now, what makes this gun interesting and different from many other offerings from many other companies is that it does use a rotating barrel to lock the action. So if I pull the slide back a little bit, you can see that barrel actually rotates. So it does not use the Browning tilting action at all. Some people think this is a much more efficient system. Other companies have tried guns like this, such as Colt with the M2000, and there were even some pistols going back to the early 20th century that tried this as well. But I think Beretta has had the most success with it. It is known to be reliable and well built. So some people absolutely love this gun, and I think this gun has had a little bit of a revival because Langdon Tactical has been doing upgraded versions of these guns. Now, I think they kind of fell off the charts for a while because they really weren't that popular, but they're way more popular now, as I said, because I think a few companies like Langdon Tactical offer upgraded versions of these. But speaking about upgrading this particular gun, the owner of this gun, Richard, has changed a couple of things that I do need to let you know about. This gun originally came as an F-type, however, he has converted it to a G-type. The F-type has a safety and decocker. This is a decocker only because he wanted to carry this gun, and I actually think the G-type is better for carry. One of the complaints with the slide-mounted safeties and decockers is that if you do rack the slide, you might accidentally engage the safety if it is on the gun, and then if you need to use it, well, it might surprise you when the gun doesn't go bang. So having that G-type on there, it doesn't matter, and I kind of like that, especially if you're going to use this as a carry gun. That first pull is going to be double action, which I think kind of acts like the safety. This gun also has the D hammer spring in it, which is a little bit lighter and is supposed to improve the trigger pull. But both of these options are offered from Beretta, and they are factory OEM conversion parts. So now let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this gun, and as always, let's start with the positive first. And the first thing I absolutely love about this is what I've already told you makes this gun so cool, and that it has a rotating barrel. And you really have to rack the slide on one of these to feel this, but when you rack this slide, it is very easy to do. That is one of the advantages to the rotating barrel, and I feel like as a carry gun or a pistol in general, for people that might have weak hands or possibly be women and don't like to rack heavy semi-automatic pistols, this is very easy to do. It reminds me very much of the Smith & Wesson Easy, which I believe is the M&P Easy, and it has that kind of feature where it's easy to rack and easy to load, and this gun definitely fills that role. I've also mentioned to you that this is the G-type, so I think for carry, having that decocker is awesome, but you're going to need a decocker on a hammer-fired gun. Now, maybe I'm a little bit old school, and I like all guns, but in general, I have really fallen in love with double-action, single-action, hammer-fired guns as of late. I've always felt they were the more superior system over the striker fire. Now, I do like striker-fired guns, but when it comes to my guns, there's just something very manly about having a hammer-fired gun over a striker-fired. I don't know. It's just a personal opinion. I know both work great, but it's just nice to see that hammer. I don't know. It just makes me feel a little bit more secure knowing that the gun is ready to go. Sometimes on striker-fired guns, you don't have a striker indicator, but if this hammer is back, you know it's ready to go. This gun also seems to be extremely well built. Of course, it's a Beretta, and they make quality stuff. They've been making firearms now for over 500 years. I believe they are the oldest firearms manufacturer in the world, still owned by the Beretta family. This gun is also really, really light. It looks kind of chunky because it has this big old slide, but of course the frame is polymer, but this thing is relatively light, and I would definitely put it on par with a gun as light as a Glock 19. The last thing that I really like is this trigger, and I think this trigger is pretty good out of the box, but with the addition of that D hammer spring, it makes the trigger pull really nice. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera. Let's test this trigger pull out with the Lineman trigger pull gauge. I'll try it out in both double action and single action and just see how good it actually is. Alright, so let's check out the trigger on this Beretta Px4 Storm Compact in 9mm. Of course, let me go ahead and drop the magazine, ensure there's no ammunition in it, set that aside, and then of course visually inspect the chamber. Looks like we are good and safe. I'll decock it. Let's take a look at this double action pull first. And I have to say this pull is lighter than most double actions typically are. Of course, you got a long pull and a long reset. There's that reset, but it is tactile and audible. And now let's check it out in single action. We have a little bit of take up, a little bit longer and more than a typical striker fired handgun, but we do hit a wall and it breaks very crisp and is very predictable and light. Here's the reset. Not too far, and we're right back at that wall. That's pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so now let's get out the trigger pull weight gauge and let's actually see what this trigger measures at. Let me, of course, clear the averages out. And let's try this in double action first. And gotta be slow and careful with this. And our first pull is 8 pounds, 4.5 ounces. Then 7 pounds, 6.7 ounces. Eight pounds, 2.2 ounces. Then we have 8 pounds, 1.3 ounces. And then finally we have 8 pounds, 10.2 ounces, which gives us an average of 8 pounds, 1.8 ounces. That's a pretty darn good trigger pull for a double action trigger. I'm very, very impressed with that. All right, so let me go ahead and clear that out. And now let's check this thing out in single action. And our first single action pull, 4 pounds, 3.5 ounces. Four pounds, 3.6 ounces. Four pounds, 4.0 ounces. Four pounds, 4.3 ounces. And finally we have 3 pounds, 15.3 ounces, which gives us an average of 4 pounds, 2.9 ounces. And for me, that is on the lower side of what I think is an acceptable carry trigger. Anything over 4 pounds and under 5 pounds, I think is perfect. So that is what this trigger is all about, and I really feel it is one of the best for a double action, single action pistol like this. All right, so that's what the trigger is weighing at. So now let's get back to the rest of this range report. And so there you go, and as you can see, this gun has a really nice trigger in it, and one of the best features about it. But now let's talk about a few things about this gun that I don't like. And the first thing that I want to mention is this gun really does appear to have a high bore axis. Now this is one of the reasons why when I reviewed the one in 40, I felt it was a little bit snappy. Now it has to have a high bore axis because of the mechanics of that rotating barrel. I also kind of feel like it's an extra thick gun because it has to be because of the mechanics of it. So this is a wider gun, so for some people that really care about the thickness of a firearm, it might be a little bit harder to conceal if you wear tighter clothes, and it might have a little bit more recoil because of that higher bore axis. The last thing that I want to mention about this gun that I don't like is the fact you can't mount a suppressor to it. Nobody's going to be able to make a threaded barrel for this gun. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that for the most part, you cannot suppress one of these because when that barrel rotates, it's going to unthread. So you would have to have some other type of locking mechanism for the suppressor. And I don't think anybody's really going to invest the time and the resources for creating a suppressor just for this particular model gun. So if you're somebody that only likes to shoot suppressed or likes to have different type of muzzle attachments to your pistol, you're not going to be able to do that with a rotating barreled pistol like this. So that might be a downside and something to consider. All right, so I've blabbered on enough about this gun, so let's take it to the range. So as always, I'm going to put a magazine through this at 7 yards. I know it's not very far, but I just like to get my initial thoughts and impressions. I want to make sure this gun shoots, that I don't have any issues with it, and just see if just with the first shots, if I discover anything else about this gun that I like or don't like, that I want to report back to you. So here we go. My first magazine with the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact in 9mm. So let's see how it shoots. And I have to say, we're off to a fantastic start. The gun really seems to be a naturally pointing firearm, seems to be accurate, and I'm really impressed with the recoil. This thing seems to be a lot better than the one in 40. It's a huge difference. I'm really liking the way this one is shooting. The only thing that I'm noticing about this gun, and I really saw it when I was editing the range footage, is that I'm having some erratic ejections with it. Some are strong, some are weak, some are at the 3 o'clock position, some are at 5, and I even had 1 or 2 come back and hit me pretty much in the face or on my chest. So that's just something I'm going to have to pay attention to, but it didn't cause any failures at all. All right, so now let's double the distance of this target. I'm going to go for the head on this IDPA silhouette, see what happens to this really nice group, and just see if I continue to find anything about this gun that I like or don't like that I once again think is worthy of talking about. So here we go. Let's double the distance and put another magazine through this thing. All right, and that group actually opened up quite a bit, but it's still centered on what I was shooting at. And I think the reason is going to be the sights. Now, something I'm noticing about these sights, which by the way are a 3-dot system, we have 2 dots in the back and 1 dot in the front, I am noticing that when I look through the rear sights, that the blade of the front is kind of narrow and there's a big gap on both sides of it when I'm trying to aim it. So this thing is going to be a little bit fidgety when it comes to the windage. I like it when the front sight fills up the gap in the back. I know that I'm on target. This one, there's a little bit of gap on both sides, and before I shoot, I have to make sure it has an even gap. I'm also having to hold this front sight a little bit higher than the ones in the rear. This is very similar to that of like a SIG pistol, and I think they call it the SIG combat sights. And if you ever shot a P226, you guys know what I'm talking about. So that's just something I'm going to have to adjust for, but I still think that the gun is accurate. It goes and shoots where I'm pointing it. It's just opening up at a further distance. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is what I call the bench rest or the barrier test. Essentially, I'm going to set the target as far as I can at this indoor range, and I'm going to shoot this against my range bag just to see if I can take as much of the human element out of it as I possibly can and just see how the gun groups. So here we go, 20 or 25 yards, and let's see what another magazine does and how this group continues to be. Now for me, the further the target goes out, the less accurate this gun becomes significantly. I mean, it is a huge drop off in accuracy for me. And it could be because it has a shorter sight radius, or it could be the sights in general, like I talked about in the last portion. But whatever it is, this gun seems to be really good for me closer up, but not as good at further distances. All right, so the next test I want to do is the hollow point test. Now, because this is a rotating barrel, I'm not sure if that's going to cause any issues with a hollow point. I don't think it would be, because a lot of people carry this, but I definitely think it is something worth testing. So let me load up one of these magazines, which by the way hold 15 rounds, with some hollow points, see if I have any issues, and I'm going to bring the target back in a little bit to see if I can get a better grouping once again at a closer distance. And as expected, the gun ran great, and once again, at a closer distance, this thing is kind of like a tack driver for me. I'm really surprised that I'm having such a discrepancy when the target is further out. Normally, when I shoot particular guns, rifles, pistols, and so forth, only at 25 yards, I don't really get the groupings to open up like this, but this one, I do. But for close-up engagements, this thing seems to be great. Now, if you are going to use this as a carry gun, which by the way, another reason why I wanted to test hollow points, I think for the distances that you would probably use it at, it's going to be absolutely perfect. So I'm having no problems, and I really do like this thing. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is the double action test. Now, normally you're not going to shoot this double action with every single shot, but I want to see if this lighter double action pull affects my accuracy at all. So after every shot, I will use the decocker, lower that hammer, and just see what a magazine in all double action would look like. So here we go, the double action test. And for me, I'm happy with that. If I was having to pull this and that first round is double action, I'm pretty confident it's going to go where I'm aiming. It has a very light double action pull, which I really like. This gun reminds me a lot of the SIG P series of pistols in that normally I shoot those better double action than I do single action. So I'm really happy with the trigger on this gun. All right, so the last test I want to do is going to be the mag dump, quick mag change, and point shooting test. And I try to do three things in this test. Number one, see, is this a naturally pointing firearm? So far, I think it is. I also want to see how fast I can shoot this thing. And of course, I want to have a little bit of fun with it with a mag dump. So we're going to dump 2 magazines through this thing as fast as I possibly can. I'm just going to point shoot it. So this is kind of a blend of a number of things. I'm going to have some fun with it and just see how fast I can shoot it. And then I'll give you guys my final thoughts. So let's get to the range and let's shoot this thing fast. And because this trigger is so light, I can definitely shoot it fast. I did discover if you want to drop the magazine fast, you got to make sure the gun is upright. It falls right out. But if the gun is tilted just a little bit, I don't know if it's friction within the magwell, it kind of slowed me down. So it's something that I would have to train with. Make sure that the gun is in the upright position and that magazine will fly out of there. It did slow me down, as I said, just a little bit. But it does seem to be a naturally pointing firearm and I can shoot it pretty darn fast. So what are my final thoughts on the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact chambered in 9mm? So I did not have any issues whatsoever with this gun, even though I did have some erratic ejections. I love how light it is with this polymer frame. It seems to be very accurate for me at close distances, pretty much 10 yards and closer. And I'm pretty happy with the capacity of 15 rounds. Of course, being a compact size pistol, this thing is probably going to compete with the likes of a Glock 19, so it does share that same capacity. I think the only cons that I have with this would be the sights, and that's why I don't shoot it as well at further distances. And that's really it. But overall, I'm very happy with the performance of this gun. And I will say that people said I needed to shoot this in 9mm. We're probably right. I really would like to try one of these out in the full size in 9mm. I bet that is really nice as well. So on my star system, how would I rate the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact in 9mm? I can easily give this 4.5 stars out of 5. And I believe that is the highest rating for any of these PX4 pistols. This one is really, really nice. And if you're looking for a gun that's a little bit different than many other guns out there with this rotating barrel, this is one to definitely take a look at. I think this would be an ultimate carry gun if it is your style. And I really like the G modification to this and the D spring modification. I don't have any issues with this gun whatsoever, and I think as a carry gun, it would be absolutely perfect. But only you know what your situation is and what you're looking for. But this is one of those guns that I think I'm going to add to my list of what I recommend to people when they say, hey, what would be a great carry gun for me? I also like the fact, once more, that that slide is so easy to rack. So a lot of positives for this gun. So once again, 4.5 stars for the Beretta Px4 Storm Compact in 9mm. So what do you guys think? Is this a gun that you own? Have you ever shot one? And do you own any of the Px4 Storm pistols? And what do you think? Do your experiences mirror mine? So let me know in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.